This is a regular meeting of the Planning Board of the City of Asbury Park. Madam Kurzak, please call us to order.
All right, this meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. Adequate notice of this meeting have been provided to the Coaster and Asbury Park Press by publication of the annual meeting notice and posted on the municipal bulletin board and municipal website. All notices are on file with the board secretary. Official action may be taken at the following matters before the board. Fire exits are located on east and west sides of the council chambers, as well as the back of the building. I will ask everybody with cell phone or other device to kindly silence your device for the duration of this meeting. And as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded by APTV for your viewing pleasure sometime in the future. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now take roll. Mayor John Moore.
Here.
Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton. Here. Michael Manzella.
Here.
Jim Henry.
Here.
Jennifer Souter.
Here.
Alexis Taylor.
Here.
Eric Gallipo.
Here.
Rick Lambert is absent. And Barbara Kurzak.
Here.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, the first item on the agenda are the minutes for October 4th, 2021, a regular meeting. Does anybody have any comments on that? Yes, Mr. Henry.
I was not here. I was listed as attending that meeting, but I was not here.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. So Jennifer Souter actually contacted me about the attendance, and I've gone ahead and corrected all the attendees and absentees.
All right, can I get a motion for approving the minutes of October 4th?
Move it. Second.
I have a motion by Michael Manzella and a second by Eric Gallipo. All attendees in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed?
I abstained.
Thank you. And Jennifer Souter abstained. Yes. Thank you. Minutes approved. And there's one item that is not on the agenda that was posted, but we did pass around and we'll discuss the 2022 meeting dates.
Yes, does anybody have any concerns about the meeting dates that were provided to you?
And wishes.
Okay, let's get a motion to approve the meeting dates for 2022.
So moved.
I have a motion by Michael Manzella and a second by Yvonne Clayton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The meeting dates were posted on the website.
Not yet.
Are they any place that people in attendance can see them?
So this is to place it on the city calendar.
I know that. I'm talking about the agenda for tonight, though.
Oh, it was given to all of us.
Yes.
Right. But is there any place where the members of the public could have observed that it was going to be discussed?
No, it was not on the agenda.
Well, aren't the meeting dates officially adopted at the reorg meeting?
They are.
Yeah,
So
this is
Oh.
just, you're going to do this, you're not taking any formal action on this tonight.
no. This
Okay.
is just so we can place the
Yeah, I get it.
placeholders on the city
That's fine.
calendar, and then at the reorg meeting, we adopt the actual meeting dates.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we have two applications. Even though they're listed as three, there are two that are together. And since we're doing that and we're having two separate applications, we're considering that to be about an hour and a half for each. So, Mr. Karras, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you.
And we will be switching over to the second application if we do run out of time.
Hopefully we'll be done. If I may, Andrew Karras of the firm Fox Rothschild, on behalf of the applicant, 316 Main Avenue, LLC. The board may recall we were here last time. We presented the application. Based upon the board's recommendations, suggestions, we made quite a number of revisions to the plans. What I plan on doing tonight is going through those revisions, what we've done. So with that being said, I would call Obi up. Our architect was sworn last time
I'm gonna
and qualified.
And I will swear our staff. Sir, please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear the testimony you have given this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yes. Thank you. You can lower your hand and just restate your name for the record. We know you're the architect. I just wanted to get you back under oath.
Yes, my name is Obiora Igadosi.
Thank you. Okay, and if I may, let's swear in our professionals, so in case there's any need to. Gentlemen, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you have given this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please state your names for the record and your affiliation with the board.
Michael Sullivan, Clark Key, his board planner.
Thank you.
Doug Cullen, Insight Engineering, Board Engineer.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Karas.
If I may. Obie, at the hearing that we had last time on this application, there was a lot of discussion with regard to revisions, plans, accommodations of certain requests. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Okay, and you made revisions to the plans, and those were submitted to the board for tonight's hearing. Am I correct?
yes,
All right, what I'm going to do is we're going to mark, I believe we're on A6 for identification.
That's what I see.
A6.
You have that, Irina? A6
Yes,
is
A6.
next. Thank you.
So A6 are the revised, do we have a revised plan date?
it's 10. Are you looking for?
Yeah, just the revision date to mark the plans. These I believe are
Yeah,
revised.
okay.
Are they?
Yeah, 8/13/21.
So can we pull up the plans up on the screen so everybody can see them?
In the meantime, can you let us know which actual, what's the number on the, what number are we looking at?
It's A6.
But that's the,
Oh, we're going to start on the cover page, T1,
okay.
and then
T1.
we'll go through the plans with the
Okay.
revisions. Just want to see if we can get them up on the screen.
Sorry, Obie.
All right, if we can do this old school, put the plans up on the board.
Let's get started that way and,
Okay.
So you'll have to do it.
Uh,
I'll try to do it.
Going old school. What I'm going to do is mark then A6 for identification. Today's date is the 18th, 2021. Looking at what's been marked as A6 for identification, are those the plans that you prepared with the revision since the hearing last time?
Yes,
Okay. What I want to do is just go through the plans. We're going to start on T1. And that's the revised rendering that was done, am I correct?
yes,
And that reflects on there in the corner on bangs, a different window line and also the removal of the knee wall, am I correct?
yes.
All right, why don't we talk about that for a few minutes?
Yes, as discussed last time, we had an extensive conversation with the board in terms of trying to redefine the corner to create more window space so that, it will stand out as a corner for the building. So based on that, we we had a meeting among the team members, and we've now revised it so that the corner, has the same type of treatment as was on the main street. We brought it on the other side of it. So this all the bedrooms, all the apartment on this corner will be very prominent. And also, down here, unfortunately, I was hoping I can zoom in on it, but down here, we also removed the wall that we had at the bottom, based on the recommendation.
So now it's consistent with what we have on Main Street. There's
Yeah.
no knee wall, and it gives greater flexibility in terms of utilization of that retail space. Am I correct?
Yes,
So if you have smaller merchants that wanted to go and utilize that space, you're able now to do it, both off of Bangs and also off of Main Street. Am I correct?
yes,
Okay. And on the windows that we were talking about, the revised windows gets rid of those smaller windows and provides more glass and a better viewing area. Am I correct?
yes,
So aesthetically, it's a revision to what was there, what we had proposed before. Am I correct?
yes.
All right, there was a comment last time having to do with the screens that were on the garage on the first floor.
Yes,
All right, and that's on page, before we get to the parking, I just want to hit that.
on 813.
A13, correct?
Yes,
Okay, let's take a look at A13. Here, why don't you post it? Now, the comment was, we added architectural interest to those screens that are over that garage area, am I correct?
yes.
Okay, why don't we talk about that a little bit?
So, before we had rails, and the concern was that, it needed to be more artistic. So we spoke to the developer, we were able to look online and, engage manufacturers this type of grills. More artistic, more design oriented, so that's what we are planning to put along the wall. You can see it right here. Again, it's on 8.2.0. So along banks will have it, so create a rhythm,
And why don't we show where, excuse me, where in Bangs Avenue those grills have been replaced?
So it's all along here, and if you look at the elevation, which is
So we're looking at A3.0.
3.0.
And we're showing the elevation from Bangs Ave and showing where those grills would be, am I correct?
Yes,
Now, another comment was with regard to the entrance on Bangs Ave, to add some glass to either side of the door. A little bit more interest on the building. And is that shown on this plan right here?
yes, it's over here, and also there's an enlarged plan of it. Let me see if I can, no, this shows it well. Yeah, this over here shows it.
Okay, so there was more glass, more interest that was added to the entrance on that Main Street, I'm sorry, the Bangs Avenue elevation, am I correct?
Yes,
Now, with regard to, when we look at the bottom view, that's the Main Street elevation. In terms of the area for the signage of the van, that was also revised, am I correct?
yes.
And what was done there?
Yeah, we, on the top portion of the curtain wall, we provided ability for, for signage to be on top of it, throughout the whole length of it. So depending on the retail that we have, whether it's 2, 3, we can make that adjustment to make sure that the signage will be appropriately located along that, on the top of that part.
Okay. Now, there is a lot of talk about the penthouses and the location of the penthouse, which on your plan that we have proposed is around 5 feet 10 inches or so from Bangs Ave. We were able to revise the plans to show a different location for the penthouses, correct?
Yes, we did. Yeah, this actually gave us the greatest challenge to solve. They're working collaboratively with the siteman, we were able to solve that. And the result of that is that we now have, if you look on your plans, instead of it being 5 along, Banks Avenue, we used to have 5-foot offset, now it's 12, 2.5. So it's, like more than double what we had before. And then along Main Street, we pulled back the bulkhead to 15.0. And that used to also be 5, so we, pulled it back significantly.
So there's a significant increase in the setback on those penthouses, am I correct?
Yes,
Now, there were some revisions made to the parking area, am I correct?
yes.
Why don't we go through those? You want to? All right, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to have our engineer go through the parking. Are those all the architectural changes that we've made to the plans?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
If I may, excuse me for interrupting. Alexis Taylor was not here at the previous meeting, however, I'm advised that she has reviewed the transcripts or watched the videos and so on. And you would confirm that,
Yes,
Alexis?
correct.
Okay, and I will prepare a certification for her to sign for the record, okay? Just so that you can participate and vote. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
One of the things that you'd mentioned was on the corner of Main and Bangs, that those windows are now all the way down to the ground, and that there's more of a window. When I look at the prior depiction of the prior rendering, quite honestly, it looks that it's the same length, because in the new one, if you take a look on top and like the transom, it looks like, I don't know, is that shading, or is that really a window, or?
It's not a window, it's
What is
made of
that?
glass,
Is it a glass you can see through?
No,
Okay, so you've taken away from the bottom and moved it to the top.
yeah, before, we did not have any, we just had the low wall
Right,
and then some glazing.
right,
Right now, and what we did before was everything was glass.
right.
So the question was, how is it possible that somebody can do display? So what we've done now is, on top of it, we've provided the ability for, for it not to be, transparent, so you can put signage on it.
All right, so that top band is for signage.
Yes,
Not on the actual building, it's on the actual window.
yeah, on the window, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
okay. All right, I just wanted to understand, because it doesn't look like there's any more window than there was before. You just moved it, you just swapped. That's
And
okay.
the glass comes all the way down, yeah.
Right, and the glass goes all the way down, so you're just moving it all down.
And that gives the option then, instead of just having retail on Main Street, it wraps to allow for retail to come in on Bangs Avenue, am I correct?
Yes, yes. And also, what we did before, there was a low wall here.
Mm-hmm,
Unfortunately,
Right. No.
we're not able.
we have copies
Yeah,
of that.
so, by removing this, some of the concern that was raised is that you will want the ability, depending on the store, for there to be entrance, in that corner. So this gives us the ability to do that by removing that low wall out of it. It also creates flexibility in terms of breaking up the space, which was a concern that we raised in terms of, there being a possibility of having more than 2 tenants in the space.
And I believe in the last meeting, we discussed that top band would be made not transparent, that you
Yeah.
would replace it with what is called spandrel glass.
I was trying to think of that term,
Yes.
for some reason
Yeah,
it
that's
wasn't
fine.
coming to me.
Yes, so I
Fine.
believe we did request
Yeah.
that the upper band be left for signage. That was
And-
not affixed directly to the building.
And I'm sorry, did you already mention that now we have, that you've changed the corner?
Yes.
Where
On this side.
so are the rooms the same, but now there's glass?
Yeah,
And
well-
and like, almost like a Juliet balcony?
Yeah, yes, the room is the same, except that, what we've done is try to bring what we are doing on Main onto banks also. And, we're gonna rearrange the room, the furniture in the room. Actually, it's really, that's a great comment that was made, in looking at it. At first, we thought it was gonna be very difficult, but once we started working at it and moving it around, it created a better product in terms of street presence and how it looked in that corner. Yeah. I mean, it reads better when you can see it on the screen. I can zoom in and you can really get the feel of it, but we don't have that capability now. But I'm sure your renderings, clearly depict the way, it would feel when you're in that corner.
I just wanted to make the comment, I think all those changes that you went through are really positive.
Thank you.
And achieve a lot of the concerns I had.
No, the comments were good comments last
Yeah.
time, and certainly it enhanced taking those comments into consideration. Making revisions to the plans, I think it enhances the design that's going to go there.
Yeah, among that also was the entrance. At first, when it was suggested to try to bring glazing at the entrance, the main entrance to the building, there was some kind of, we were feeling that, since we have mechanical and all those spaces there, but when you look at it now, having it kind of makes the building more, what is the word? It kind of softens the look of the first floor. So it's really nice. But that was a great comment. I'm glad you guys pushed for it and were able to incorporate it. It made for a better building.
I have a question on on page A3. On the west elevation you have, it seems to me that on the south end of that building, you have the entrance door for the stairwell.
Is this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Why not continue your glass all the way over and make that door something similar to what you have in that west elevation?
Well,
Even though it may not be functional, at least it would give it continuity across the entire facade.
Well, we were trying not to do that because we're trying to establish this band as the exit, as the stair. We want it to be different. Otherwise, we're just stacking things on top of each other. And, looking at it the way it is and the way it was broken up, well, I believe that is the best way to address it. Because otherwise, you just have something and, you just have all glass and you're stacking up on top of it. But this creates the interest that we needed, which is we have this element here, we did a couple of it here and we brought it down. So there's there's a reason why we did that. And I believe that carrying that glass all the way. Plus, also when you look at the floor plan, this is an exit stair that we're trying to get out. And then we have the retail on the inside. So trying to play that, creates, I can go to.
Why don't we go to that?
See, what's happening is we also have a door that we're exiting this from here to come out here and then do this. So running all this as glass, I just feel will take away from bringing the top down.
So architecturally, it's better to have that band coming down than
Yes.
in terms of just architectural design.
It's just, otherwise all we're doing is just doing a glass and sticking things on top of it, which I believe will defeat the purpose of the whole, dynamics of the exterior.
So my only question, I think it's great that you guys were able to pull those penthouses back away from the facade of the building. I think that will help a lot. I just want to confirm, because I think there is still a variance condition there, because I believe the requirement is 20 feet from the front of the building, and I'm not sure what.
We noticed.
Yeah. And the intent of the requirement is so that it's not visible from either side of the street. Would you say that it's that this is improved, this condition?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We also show, I think if you look at drawing A3.0, it's because of the angle. Since we moved it back, you will definitely, it's much more to improve.
So you have on the left side of A 3.0, each street, a person standing across the street and how they would view it, they could view the penthouse, am I correct?
Yes. All the way back.
Great, thank you.
So is there, I see that you've gone to 12.2 feet. What's the distance on the other side, like on the south side of those penthouses from the edge? Because I don't see that. That's on A1.5. I understand that it's 12.2 on the north side, 15 on the west side,
Yeah.
and I don't see how much it is on the south side,
Which,
the distance
we have
from the penthouses to the back of the building.
Oh, to the back here?
To the back, no, a little bit more to the left where the 3 penthouses are.
Oh, here?
Yeah, I don't see what
Oh,
the
what-
distance is there.
Oh, okay, I see.
Do we know, do we know?
It is not dimension. I would say it's probably about, maybe about 12 or a little bit more. You know, it's almost the same as the one in the front.
So can I ask what that, I know that, Michael, that you'd mentioned that it was 20 feet from the front of the building is what we have to get to, but do we have to do 20 feet all the way around? Or just the front of the
In the
building?
front,
No, I believe it's only the front of the street.
on the street.
From the front of the building.
From the front of the building only,
This
so,
has two frontages.
Oh,
And in theory, those penthouses in the back meet the requirement of being more than X feet away from the street line.
Right.
oh, I see, so that even though
Yeah.
it's the back of the building?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So still, since this building has 2 frontages, both of them should be 20 feet and neither one is.
That is correct.
So they're variances
That's a
for
variance
both.
that
That's
we've
correct.
requested, correct.
Just to be clear, the requirement is 20 feet and not be visible.
Okay,
And
Okay.
based upon the revisions, it's not visible, am I correct?
Yes.
From either side of the principal street.
now, once again, how do I know that?
A 3.0.
A 3.0, okay, go ahead.
Is that?
Show me how I know it. Oh, this diagram, okay. Okay. And also the you are also looking for a variance for a height variance, correct?
For the parapet.
For the parapet?
No, we don't need it for a parapet. Under the redevelopment plan, you can go for decorative elements, you can go 4 feet above the permitted height.
I'm just gonna say, I don't think there's an agreement that the parapet is decorative, in terms of that height. And I haven't heard anything from.
Is the parapet decorative?
Yes,
Parapet's decorative.
it enhances the look of the building, and it's not, we don't really need it technically, but because of, you know, the look of the building, the way to break the elevations up, we're adding that. So it's an
Can you
enhancement.
just do on T1, can you just point very specifically where the parapet is? So I'm clear, on T1, the first page?
Oh,
Can I see that? Where is that specifically?
just,
That, the
here.
corner?
Yeah, here, and also these are also, they're higher than the roof. You know,
Right.
The roof stops, and then we brought these elements up, you know.
And they're not required, they're decorative. You could have just built right to the top of the roof, correct?
Actually, we could have done that, but, you know, this gives it the scale that we're looking for.
And I personally, and I'm only one person, that I prefer the building to be shorter than taller. Just from visually, from what you can see from this corner, that's just my 2 cents. So adding any footage to that front and that corner, I'm not a fan of. But like I said, I'm only one person.
Just one point I want to make. Remember now that this is the sister building to 700 Banks. In 700, we have.
I know that throughout this whole presentation, you've continuously said, it's like 700 Bangs. To me, it's Maine. It's Maine and Bangs. Because most of the people that come into town are not coming from that side of town. They're coming Main, and the side streets coming in here. This is a prominent corner of Asbury Park. That's my concern. And I get that you want it to look like 700 Bangs, and I'm not denying that 700 Bangs is lovely.
No,
Not denying
it is a
that.
prominent corner, and the thing is, when you look at the design of this building, you, for a minute, putting 700 Banks aside, I mean, it's a beautiful design building. You have a 1970s building that we're sitting in, you have an older building next to it. You have everything all over the place, but you're gonna put this beautifully designed building right there in a prominent place.
No, while I understand, just voicing an opinion, that's all. Or do you have anything else? Does the board have any other questions?
One quick question. Your original plans called for 316 to be on Bangs Avenue. I see it's no longer in the drawing, but it's not on Main Street. Will it be on Main Street? The number?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll work with the developer to see where to put that on.
That was actually a really good point last time, the 316 being on the Banks outside.
Good, thank you.
All right, so 316 is going to be
It'll go
on
on me.
Yeah.
the front,
Correct.
Main. Okay. All right, I know that we have a whole list of other things that we're going to be, that you're going to come back with, but I'm assuming that that's all that you're presenting at this point.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else from the planning board? Any members? Any other questions? Do our professionals have any other questions as to what was presented?
One of the comments we had that was really not responded to, and I'm not sure how the discussion went last time because they seem to be reacting to what the board has suggested, was the relationship scale-wise to the adjacent Santander Bank, the more classical building on Main Street. This gets to Chair's point. Are there any, you didn't consider any moves to reduce the perceived scale of the building as it transitions back towards that? And whether that's important to the board, I don't know. I'm just saying. It was a comment on the report.
Yeah, we had addressed that last time.
Yeah.
And we thought this was the appropriate scale based on the testimony that was presented.
Anyone else? Any other professionals have any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
I don't mean to throw a wrench in here, because I think the discussion was that the address was going to be added to Main Street. And I'm just putting this out there, because the residential entrance is on Banks Avenue. I'm just thinking, it's kind of confusing that added to the building is Main, but the entrance is on Banks.
Right, they can call it 316 Main and 720 Bangs. They can put up another one for their tenants and their mailing address on the Bangs Avenue side.
Yeah, that we were just talking about, maybe it's possible to have the address changed to.
Yeah, and I don't even care if you put one, 316 Main is, I see it's removed from Bangs, but, so if you make it 720, 740, whatever Bangs is.
Well, definitely, I think it makes sense.
Right, because that's where the mailbox is gonna be and everything else. So, yeah, no problem.
Anything else from our professionals? Okay, can I open up for public comment and question? Any public that would like to get up for any questions, please get up to the microphone. And now these questions have to do only with what was presented just now.
Correct.
By the architect. Okay.
Do you have any renderings that show that building, like looking down Main Street, so you can see the scale relative to the other buildings on Main?
Sir, if you don't mind, please give us your name, spell it, and your address.
I'm Dietrich Dika. You want me to spell
Sure.
it? Okay, so last name Dika, D-I-E-C-K-E. First name Dietrich, D-I-E-T-R-I-C-H. I live at 1204 Fifth Ave.
Thank you.
You want me to repeat the question?
Please.
So again, if you have any renderings looking down Main Street, like I'll say from the south, looking at the building, so you can see the scale relative to the other buildings on Main.
No, just at the corner that shows the building and also.
Okay.
Anybody else from the public have any other questions? Okay, let's, your next witness.
Right.
I'm sorry, Eddie. I finally got it working.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Greg, please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this matter, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please, once again, state your name for the record, and we know you as the engineer.
Yep, Gregory Domilewski with Mid-Atlantic Engineering Partners.
Greg, as a result of the hearing we had last on this application, you too had made revisions to the plans, am I correct?
Correct.
And you have a revised site plan that you had submitted to the board, am I correct?
I do.
Okay, why don't we put that up, and we're gonna identify that?
Either the preliminary and final major site plans.
And the
That's
last
gonna be
revision,
A7.
yeah, the last revision date on that is?
Last revision date is 10/7/21.
A7 for identification, revised plan. There you go.
I got it, thank you.
All right, taking a look at what's been marked as A7 for identification, why don't we go through revisions that you need to say?
Sure, actually, I think I could go with the rendering first, and we can talk about the garage. So I'm gonna actually bring up this, we'll have that in an exhibit if we need to refer to it, but I'm gonna go to the 316 Main Street ground floor rendering, which was updated as well to reflect the site plan changes. And this is the 316 Main Street ground floor rendering dated 10/18/21.
And what sheet number is that?
It's actually a separate sheet, the rendering that we updated, but I did bring 11 by 17 for your request last time.
So then let's make that
Okay.
A8.
A8.
Okay.
I'll pass them on.
Sure.
Thank
So that's gonna actually have both renderings. The other rendering, which we'll mark as, if it's okay, A9, is the 316 Main Street roof level rendering. So if we have to refer to that, that's in that package as well.
Taking a look at what's been marked as A8. Go ahead.
Sure. So what we made changes on this sheet, if you're looking at the ground floor rendering, is we eliminated the ADA parking stall from the garage because at the last hearing, we talked about having a van accessible parking stall. And the ADA clearance requires 8 feet 2 inches for a van accessible stall. And the door coming between 700 Bangs and our property is 7 foot 4 inches. So there's not enough height to get an ADA accessible van stall inside the garage. So we proposed that the first stall along Bangs Avenue would be turned into an ADA accessible stall where a van could park, and it's the closest one in proximity to the handicap ramp at the corner. Understanding that we would also require city council approval in order to do that. That's what we propose here. And then also, at the request of Inside Engineering, we took a look at the first stall, the one up in the top left-hand corner of the rendering here. It's the first stall along the retail space that's sort of tucked into this corner. That had previously been a full-size parking stall, and when we took a look at the turning templates, we realized that it would be very difficult for a full-size car, although you could do it. It'd be very difficult for the average driver to do so. So we made that stall a compact stall, and those turning templates are included in the site plan set now that we resubmitted to the town as well. So a smaller car could easily get into that parking stall. Does anybody want to see that turning template plan or sheet? I see you looking around, Barbara.
Yeah, which sheet are we looking at?
Okay. We go through, it'll be your sheet 4 or 5, I believe it's sheet 5.
Yes, 5.
Yep, so sheet 5 shows the compact car getting into that parking stall, backing out, and exiting the garage. So that car can easily now maneuver in and out of that stall versus the full-size car, which would have a little more difficulty turning into that stall. One other thing that we noted at the request of the board was to eliminate the downspout connections through the curbs. So on the utility sheet, which is sheet 6, that now notes the underground connection to 700 Bangs Ave into the storm system. Also in our lighting plan, which is sheet 7, we have revised the lighting so that the entire garage has a minimum of 1 foot candle inside the garage. And we were able to do so with relocating those fixtures. So same number of fixtures, same wattage of fixtures. We just moved them, and it gave, it basically moved the light closer to the edges and into the corners to get rid of those little bit less illuminated spots. So now that garage all has a minimum of 1 foot candle.
What about EV parking?
EV parking, we certainly, although it's not included in the site plan set, we can provide it in the building. And I believe the applicant intends to provide it in the building as well.
Yes, we asked for that to be provided.
That will be
Yep.
provided.
It'll be noted on the plan. Can be added to the use plan.
It'll be added to the site plan set, yes. And then also one other thing is curb stops. I know we had talked about it last time, adding curb stops, although they're not shown on the site plan set, we will include them as well. So the vehicles don't bump the walls.
Okay, and the rooftop, A9?
Yep. So this is the updated rooftop rendering, exhibit A9. Obi already talked about it, but this shows all the penthouses pulled back and pulled in. It really reflects the changes that Obi had already talked about on the rooftop there.
That also shows the street trees along Bangs and Main Street, am I correct?
Correct.
And no opposition to a maintenance guarantee relative to those, correct?
That's correct.
The drainage we had discussed last time, we agreed we could do that internally and hook right in, am I correct?
Yes. We'll be hooking into 700 Bangs Avenue.
And I believe that covers everything.
Also, we had discussed about tree maintenance guarantee.
I just went through that.
So I know that we mentioned what trees are going to be there, but that's your tree maintenance guarantee?
Right.
And we also spoke about, is there an issue with the trash storage? I think that there was something about the amount of room that you have for trash?
Yeah, I believe that was covered in the last hearing where they testified that the trash room would be ample storage for the size building. And that was not me on the record. I believe that was Obi that talked about the trash as well as Carter's Act.
Are there certain requirements for how large a trash area you were supposed to have?
Yes, it's 12 square feet. Let me just get my calculations out here. It's 12 square feet per apartment, so 288 square feet required, 115 provided.
Yeah, I believe the testimony from Carter Sackman last time is that based upon his experience in obviously developing these buildings and managing these buildings, there's plenty of room, sufficient room for the garbage and such.
So is that require a variance?
No.
Mike?
Design section.
It's
Michael?
an exception.
It's an exception?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'd have to include that in an exception. Does anyone have, any planning board member have any other questions?
Yes, I'm not sure, maybe Doug, you could help answer this, if, with the ADA space, it's a little confusing because it's an addition to an existing parking facility, so maybe one isn't required?
Yeah, so one is required for the development.
Uh-huh.
They so happen to be putting it in the public right of way. It is a point of easy access, and I agree with that. We just have to make sure it complies with the requirements for sizing and that it's big enough and striped the right way. And they'll need approval from the city to do so.
And also, there's no guarantee that the person that lives there will be using it. Because that is on that's on a
Correct.
city street, anyone with a decal can use it.
That's a fair point, yep.
So going back to the original garage layout, we do still have this stall down in the corner. That's the first stall as you enter. We could turn that into a handicap stall. If the city said, no, we don't want to change the first stall on Bangs Ave to a, higher head clearance ADA parking stall for an on-street, which I think is a good idea with the retail there, especially to be able to access the retail spaces. But we could include one in the garage if necessary. But again, remember that all the stalls in the garage are going to be assigned.
Right.
Yeah, so-
I think a big part of it depends on who the tenant's going to be.
Right.
If one is going to be required for the residences. In this case, it's good that there is an available space. It may not be van accessible, but an ADA striped space can be provided in the garage.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm less concerned about who has access versus is it really required? Because I thought anytime that you construct a parking facility, you had to have a certain number of
Yeah, so they're required to have
one in the whole.
regulations, yeah.
In both buildings?
Right? Do we consider it one or two separate?
Well, it's based on the number of parking stalls.
Right.
So for 0 to 25, I believe the requirement is one parking space.
Right. But they're connected. They're connected parking lots. So
But I think the one, so the 700 Bangs, I believe, has 88 stalls.
It does have its own ADA parking stalls
Okay.
inside 700 Banks. Yes.
okay. Then I guess we're covered then. I mean, I think there's testimony that we could convert one to a non-van accessible space, and that would satisfy a requirement if.
And once again, is that at 700 or is that at whatever
That's in
whatever number we're
316
calling
Main,
this?
316 Bangs, whatever we call it.
So it's in there. Which one would that be?
Yep.
It would be that one.
This first stall in the corner, it is appropriate striping to have the approximate width of the 5 feet next to that 8-foot minimum parking stall. In this case, we do have the full-size parking stall there with 5 feet striping.
Is the existing space a van accessible space?
This space here?
No, the one that's in the existing parking lot.
In Bangs.
In 700 Bangs, yes, because they have the head clearance coming into the garage.
That's a van accessible space.
Yes.
So if you looked at this as one parking.
One
lot,
parking lot.
And we could do a cross
You've
easement.
got your van accessible.
Right.
And then you've got that, if you look at it as one.
Yeah.
And we could do a cross easement on it also.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it sounds certainly less complicated than having to depend on the city to have to provide and taking the money.
We could do a cross easement, it's not a big deal. Do I think it would be nice for retail and people that are starting to use Main Street more to have a van accessible?
That would be a separate request of the city that you'd like to have another spot in the vicinity, because I know that the city is looking currently to see where should they be and which ones we have. So I don't know, it just seems cleaner, and I don't know, Mike, maybe you know better.
We could certainly do a cross easement to utilize the handicap space in 700 Banks for this project.
I think that would make more sense because that covers it.
But it's two different projects. If the state law says each project needs their own, then what are we trying to do, skirt the state law?
No, I don't believe the state law says each project needs its own. It has to be provided. But as long as we're providing it.
They are, but does it say that we have to provide a van accessible? If it doesn't say we have to do van accessible, we're fine.
The regulations say that if you look at this project on its own with 25 parking stalls, you have to have one ADA parking stall, and that stall needs to be van accessible. When you start adding more stalls and it requires more ADA parking stalls, then you can get into the standard stalls in addition to your one van. So I think it's 0 to 49, or I'm sorry, 26 to 49, I believe, and don't quote me exactly. But I think that's where you're required 2 ADA parking stalls, 1 van accessible and 1 standard stall. So if we looked at this holistically between 700 Bangs and our building, we'd have to look at the required number and see that we have the right number of van spaces in 700 versus the amount of van and standard stalls required between those 2 buildings to see if it has the appropriate counts. But I think that solves the problem of having the headroom issue of having your ADA stall in the street, However, we could always make another ADA stall in the building if we had to, and I think that satisfies the code. Whoop, I just broke my mask.
There's more here.
There's some right in front there.
As you do.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
I mean, what do the planning board members feel are,
Well, I don't remember what the, obviously, when you came for 700 bags, we said you had to have handicap parking spots. So
we provided. And, you know,
but I don't know if you have one or two there, I mean, so.
I don't remember what it, the reality is that they're not being used, but.
Right, we don't even know how many you have there.
I believe there's 2, and they're right in the head.
Okay, 2 for how many total parking spots?
4.
Yeah, there's 4 here. They're in this corner right by the lobby area. So 1, 2, 3, and 4.
And it's 48 units in that building.
Okay, so 48 and 25, how many do you need?
I don't know the overall parking count at 700.
How many
right now.
parking spots in 700 bags?
I don't know. Okay.
I think it's much easier if you just put that one in the building, or else you're gonna get a condition tonight that may be turned down by mayor and council. Because we're gonna lose.
we don't want to do that.
They're gonna lose a lot of, the city's gonna lose a lot of revenue.
I agree.
Well, I mean, I know you're talking about the city losing revenue. Alternatively, in order to get a van accessible stall in our building, we'd have to remove a parking space to have garage entry into our building anyway. And you're saying, you know, removing township or city revenue, but I mean, that's another way around it as well. We don't want to have another vehicle access into this garage. It doesn't make sense. But in that case, you would lose the on-street stall in order to provide that van accessible space in our building. And with the appropriate headroom clearance into the garage.
Do you have space in the 700,000 building to put a van accessible space near the common wall?
Honestly, I think then you're getting into, I don't know, Andy, is that another variance on that? We have a parking variance on the building?
You could certainly,
Did you take 2 stalls to create one van accessible?
We have sufficient parking.
So, can I just, I'm trying to get back to the overall picture here. And now, after you've explained this, I understand you've got 2 van accessible spaces at 700. Plus you've got 2 standard ADA accessible spaces. You've got 4. So that's enough for roughly 100 spaces.
Depending on the code, I don't have the code.
Let's assume that we're right, okay? Therefore, if you combine this and there was equal opportunity to use those, you wouldn't have to provide any accessible spaces within this if it was treated as one parking lot. Right? But at worst case, you could provide 1 non-van accessible space here, if necessary, without monkeying around. Because I'm picking up on the very strong signals. They don't want it out in the street.
Yeah.
But they also don't want another access to it.
Yep.
So it seems like this problem can be solved between these 2.
Yeah, by getting across these.
How many,
4.
no, I know they have 4. How many parking spots are there in 700?
Andy, I have the resolution up for 700 bags.
56
56.
So we have.
56 and 25 is 81.
And there's 4. So that's more than enough.
Yeah, it's more than enough.
Okay, then don't count on one on Bangs Avenue.
Right. So then we would just need to have a cross easement in the conditions.
Great.
Yeah, which we're gonna provide anyway for the access, the utilities.
So when you do your plan revisions, you'll eliminate the street space then?
Eliminate the street space and we'll put the 1 in the corner.
Yes, please.
That works.
Okay.
And then that would adjust how much you have to pay into the, based on how many you need versus how many you have. That'll change the number, right? And at this point, I'm not sure how many that is. Because that is also.
How many are we providing, and what's the requirement?
Offhand, I'm not sure as far as ADA spaces go.
No, just regular spaces.
Oh, regular spaces.
Right. Versus how many do we have versus how many you're providing?
We are required to have 36 spaces required, and we have 19 spaces in that garage, including the 1 ADA parking stall.
So we're deficient, but also under the law with regard to new EV parking. When you're putting them in there, you get a credit 2-for-1 for parking spaces, up to,
I don't know offhand, I'm not sure of that code.
I don't know enough about it. I know it recently passed though, right?
Yeah.
Was it passed?
Yeah.
Because I know last time we met, it hadn't been passed.
Yeah,
No, it is passed.
it's passed.
Okay.
It's passed.
All right, so I think that we also have to understand what that is in order to write this,
Is that
to write this up.
Is that a credit for the non-residential or just for the residential? I thought it was for the non-residential. But I'm not,
Right, so that's outstanding.
we'll take a look.
We'll take a look.
We'll take a look.
So that's outstanding. All right, is there anything else that anyone else from the planning board has? We also mentioned about something about where this, what kind of closures you're going to have on these streets? Because we're also obviously concerned.
Yeah, what we're gonna do, 725 is gonna be used at the staging area, 725.
Okay, so that you're not going to be closing streets.
We won't be closing streets.
Closing streets or removing parking spaces during this construction process.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else for planning board? Questions? Professionals? Any
Sorry,
questions?
one
Go
more
ahead.
question. Tree selection, was there testimony on that? What species or?
There's testimony that the trees that are there are in pretty good shape.
Okay, but there's Main would be adding 2?
I'm sorry?
On Main Street we'd be adding 2 though, right?
There was no, last time there was none shown on.
Yeah, I guess it depends on, the city had mentioned possibly doing a streetscape improvement along
That's right.
Main Street.
Yep.
So we'll certainly work with the city to put in for, work with you guys as far as
Okay.
what you're looking for.
Great.
I would submit that, the trees that are on Bangs seem to be in okay condition. They're not planted in a manner that would suggest that they're gonna live forever.
Yeah.
So they need to be protected. There will be a tree protection plan,
Yeah, we're gonna do a maintenance guarantee.
right?
Great.
But a guarantee's good, but let's see how you're gonna do it, right? Let's show how it's gonna be protected, because you aren't saying you're gonna pull up all this paper, right?
In certain key areas, where we bring utilities across, we'll relay those pavers.
Okay.
And if there's any areas that are settled, but if there's a section that's, perfectly fine, I think we should leave them.
That's fine.
But at the end of the day, they'll look like a nice continuous streetscape with nicely laid pavers at the end
I
of the
think
day.
there's just gonna have to be caretaking when you're pulling utilities. If there are gonna be roots that are damaged, or need to be cut, then we need to know that, because those are trees that probably need to be replaced.
Until we start on construction, we won't know.
Right? I would suggest that there's one tree there's alcovas along there, there's one tree at the corner by where the ADA space is, it's a Bradford pear. I would suggest that should be replaced regardless, because it's a problem that you have.
All right, well, again, there's gonna be a streetscape, I guess, change on Main Street anyway, or plan with
Yeah.
the city, so we'll work with the city on that.
Great.
Anything else from our professionals?
I had a bunch of notes of things to hit, and I believe they've all been covered so
All
far.
right. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay. All right, do we have any questions from the public for our engineer, or anything that we discussed from the public? No questions from the public. Okay, do you have, go ahead.
I do, I just want to clean up a couple things
No,
here.
go ahead.
We talked about screening of utility services and mechanicals. I think you mentioned that,
We had-
I know you've been focusing on the big picture on the building.
Yeah, but we had gone through all that the last hearing with
Okay.
regard to mechanical.
Okay.
Anything else? That's it?
No, lighting's fine.
Lighting's fine? Okay. All right, do you have any other witnesses?
That's our presentation.
That's all?
set.
Okay. Do we have any comments that the board would like to make about this project?
I would like to say that, I think this project is, to the point that this project is on a prominent corner. I agree with that, and I think that the scale and size of the building largely is in context to its site. And then I would also like to just make the point that Main Street is a very wide street, and there will be development on the City Hall site at some point in the future. And I don't think that this building is more dense or more massive than the street is capable of holding, just from a pure urban design standpoint. And that said, I also appreciate that the applicant has come back to us several times and worked continually with us to make sure that uses were varied along the street, materials were varied, there are greater levels of flexibility in the retail component of the building. They've also addressed many of the concerns relating to breaking up the facade. They've chosen to do it through the inclusion of these grates, the grating on the Banks Avenue frontage. But I think overall the project is a really sensitive treatment of a very important site with a contemporary architecture.
Anyone else like to make a comment?
Yeah, in light of that, I understand what was just said. I totally disagree with this because it is a conflict with the master plan. I'm talking about strictly the facade on Main Street. It's in conflict with the master plan. It's in conflict with the Main Street redevelopment plan. I have an objection to the facade. I've heard all the arguments, and I still believe that the master plan should control and the Main Street redevelopment plan should control. And I've also heard, I've only lived here for 20 years now, and I keep hearing about this building going to be demolished and something else will be here. This building was designed to have another story put on top of it, and it may very well happen that way, and it may probably never happen in my lifetime. So the argument that we don't know what's going to happen across the street doesn't hold much, doesn't sway me at all.
Any other planning board member have a comment?
No other comment, but Jack, I'm interested in what you have for a list of conditions.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I have a bunch from the last, Michael and I were discussing this.
I think Jennifer
This
wants
thing
to
had a moderate of variances and/or design exceptions, and they've been changed, and we don't know the extent of it yet. The three of us are gonna have to put our heads together to come up with the quantification and the new, because it's very
Yes.
complex. Okay. I do have new conditions. We're gonna deal with the tree planting. They're gonna have a maintenance guarantee and a detailed maintenance plan, which Michael discussed. And again, we're all gonna discuss this post, if it's approved.
You put the tree, I'm sorry, Jackie, say tree protection, that's what you're talking about, tree protection in addition to.
I would suggest that there's a methodology for how to protect them, not just a guarantee.
Right, that's right, that's what you were saying.
Yeah, but we'll word the condition as whatever, that it's not only the maintenance plan, but also the methodology, whatever it is that you need to see from the applicant to prove to you that this is going to be taken care of. We're going to omit one of the conditions. They're going to submit revised plans showing a number of revisions that were gone over this evening. In addition, we're going to omit that street parking, ADA accessible space. Any new encroachments into city rights of way, if any, have to be approved by the mayor and council. Any old ones that were there are fine. The lighting issue has been resolved. We're going to request cross easements for parking in both structures so that we can address adequately the required parking and the ADA spaces that are required. The last meeting, I had a number of conditions that, again, if they're in conflict with anything that happened today, we will omit that, but there's some standard CBD conditions. The staging plan, we already know that, it's going to take place on their property. Compliance with any outstanding issues that were set forth in Jason's report. Again, the easements are there. Contribution to parking fund for the on-site shortage. These parking spaces were to be assigned to specific unit owners, and wheel stops were to be installed, which were addressed this evening. Mechanical systems to be screened, lighting we've dealt with. The van space we've spoken about. If any of the trees are damaged or destroyed, which Michael just brought out, they will be replaced, and the maintenance guarantee provisions, and in addition to one Bradford repairs should be permitted. DOT approvals, I'll check with Jason that are required because it's on Main Street. Bike racks to be installed on bangs, if not already done so. And Eric had a very detailed comment regarding the section for the signage and consistency. And was that addressed?
Yes.
Okay. So those were the conditions that I had.
What about EV ready?
Okay, that's a new one. Okay, I gotta put that in.
So, yeah, I just want to make a comment on that because to make sure we're all really clear on this. The project is currently 17 spaces deficient, and that's what we should put in the resolution. My understanding is that any development that had an application in place before the EV model ordinance was adopted would be grandfathered. So this project isn't required to have EV spaces. So I don't know if we can have it both ways, where if EV spaces are provided, there's a reduction in the parking requirement. I think it's got to stay at 17.
The
Just my-
applicant state that they were voluntarily going to put in EV
Correct?
installations.
Voluntarily.
Right, in our October meeting.
Correct.
It stated that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know
I just don't know that we can take a reduction in the parking requirement because there is EV spaces, because it was,
that will be subject to reviewing the
Okay.
law, and we have to see it. I don't know it, Michael knows.
Yeah, it's funny, because I just drafted an ordinance.
All right, so at this point, we don't really know what that number is, right?
well,
Well, we know what the statute provides, but in terms of the application submission and then getting the credit.
Right, we need to understand what it's going to be.
Let's err on the side of caution. So we'll say that if there's more spaces are required, grant the variance based on more spaces that are required and the deficiency doesn't exist.
Correct.
If it turns out to be that the applicant doesn't have to provide all those spaces, okay.
fine.
The city is not harmed in any way.
And just to be clear, what you're talking about are EV charging stations or EV-ready spaces.
Correct.
EV ready.
EV
You
ready.
don't want them installed now?
That'd be great, but we talked about EV ready.
Oh, okay.
It'd be great.
And EV ready might not have the same impact of,
The parking.
and the credit of spaces may not exist if it's just EV ready, as opposed to
That's right.
EV.
I'm just saying at the last meeting, we said EV ready.
Right.
Yeah, I think under the
I
statute, I think
just think
it's
it's,
easy.
if I were building a parking structure, or I'd want to get it done now. I don't want to go
You
back.
have to, because there's a study done in terms of what it costs to retrofit to put
Yeah.
EV in, as opposed to actually a new building doing it. So much cheaper.
Yeah.
To do it now, you get the,
Okay, so the assumption is that they are going to be EV ready. How many are we talking about?
I would think you charge.
Yeah,
We have to define it, so, I mean, we have to say that we're gonna do EV ready or EV charging.
No, they're going to be EV charging stations as far as I'm hearing from Mr. Karras at this point. They're going to be charging stations, not EV ready.
oh, that I don't know. I'm gonna see what. the
Right, so
statute
I don't think we
provides.
need to make it a condition of approval, right? I mean,
But it only has to be, well, we're asking for it to be at least EV ready.
okay.
We're asking for that at the
There-
very
It's
minimum.
gonna be EV ready. I gotta look at the stat, again, it
Okay.
just passed.
Right.
In terms of, you wanna put it in down because,
Right.
again, the cost is prohibitive to retrofit. But in terms of the number of spaces and the credit, I gotta take a look. at
Right,
the
is that okay for us to leave open-ended there, Jack?
I'm sorry, I was looking.
The parking, the whole thing about EV ready, not EV ready credits, do we just leave that statement open
Yeah,
because,
The worst case is it's EV ready, the best case is they install.
right.
So,
So the worst case is 19 spaces.
Yeah, I think you can
Deficient.
do up to like
17.
10%, and then
17.
on the
Worst case,
10%, you
yes.
get your credit 2-for-1. I think that's what the statute provides, so it would be like 2 spaces.
So worst case scenario, it's 17, right?
Correct.
Worst case.
And best case, it's less than.
Best case, it's less than that. So why don't we pass it?
That's fine.
If it gets passed, put 17 in.
Yes.
And then
Yeah. you
If
gotta
it's
go
less
with-
than that, it'll be less than that.
You gotta go with that.
Okay.
Now, before we vote, I looked at the, that's what I was looking at before. I looked at the attendees in September. Yvonne, were you here? I don't have you listed.
Yvonne, you were on it, but you weren't on that.
Irina, can you check the attendees for September 13th?
Yeah.
Yvonne, you're not here.
Okay.
Yvonne, Rick and Alexis were not.
Right.
Okay, so,
Yes.
did you,
Okay. That's why
Yvonne, did you review the transcript from that evening?
I watched the tape, that's why I was familiar, but I didn't sign for it.
That's fine, okay, so we'll so amend the record that two members who were not here for September have listened and reviewed the transcripts and the videos and the official documents, both being Alexis Taylor and Yvonne Clayton.
No objection.
On the record, and I will prepare the appropriate certification, so both will be eligible to vote this evening.
And also one other thing, Jack, that we didn't include, I know that we'd spoken about it, was the address of 316 Main
Right,
versus
right, okay,
720.
thank you.
You have that in there as one of the items.
They want to change the whole address.
Right, whatever it is, but there has to be something, there's gotta be something going on there.
And then Jack, we talked about the staging plan, how there's no plan to be no impact to the on-street parking, but I would still like to have a condition in there that says if any on-street spaces will be used for construction, they will require the city's approval and payment for those spaces.
Got it.
Thank you.
I just had one thing it was much less important than all that, but I just wanted to mention that the details on the bang side, I really appreciate them being added because it makes a difference. Like those small things really do make a difference, so I think they're really nice looking, the ones that you picked.
And before we get a motion, I do not believe we asked for public comment.
We have not yet. We have not yet.
We asked.
We just asked the,
Cross, but not public comment.
right. Can I get a motion to open public comment?
Move it.
Second.
Anyone from the public would like to comment?
Motion to close.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay.
I assume everybody silently approved that
Aye.
motion.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, so we're procedurally.
Procedurally
ready
good.
to Go.
I will again. I'm sorry,
Okay.
just one sec.
All right.
What don't they understand about going outside?
I'll say shush on 3.
How many people are back there?
I don't know. Cool.
They got a lot to say. All right, let's wait until Irina gets back.
Thank you.
Okay? All right, can I get a motion to approve this, the site plan and the request for both 316 Main and 700 Bangs with all of the items that we had just spoken about?
Variances and design exceptions.
Are we doing both together or are
Well,
we
we
taking
should
separate?
review it since they're technically two separate applications. All right, so you gotta, they're both gonna be in power material. They're both gonna be cross-referenced. So let's get a motion for each one because they're two separate applications.
Okay, so we'll do
Yep.
316
Let's do
Main first.
316 first.
I will make that motion to approve the application as stated for 316 Main.
With the conditions we outlined?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Eric Gallo and a second by Jennifer Souter. Mayor John Moore,
Yes.
Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton,
Yes.
Michael Manzella,
Yes.
Jim Henry,
No.
Jennifer Souter,
Yes.
Alexis Taylor,
Yes.
Eric Gallo,
Yes.
and Barbara Krisak.
Yes.
Thank you. Then we have a unanimous, well, almost unanimous, so one no. So, application approved.
Let's do 700 Banks, because if one gets approved and one doesn't, then we have a standoff. We have a problem. It won't work.
All right, can I get a motion to approve 700 Bangs with the conditions noted?
So moved.
Thank you, Eric.
I'll second it again.
Okay, I have a motion by Eric Gallipo and a second, we'll give it to Clayton. And Mayor John Moore,
Yes.
Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton,
Yes.
Michael Manzella,
Yes.
Jim Henry,
Yes?
Jennifer Sauter,
Yes.
Alexis Taylor,
Yes.
Eric Gallipo,
Yes.
and Barbara Krisak.
Yes.
Thank you, that's a unanimous approval.
Everyone, again, thank you so
All right.
much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
So sorry.
All right, can I get a motion for a 5-minute recess?
Move it.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, 5 minutes on the clock.
Thank you.
Hello. Sorry, everyone is
okay.
ready?
Yes,
All right.
we're ready.
Okay, it is 8:24 p.m. and I will now take roll. Mayor John Moore.
Here.
Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton. Here. Michael Manzella.
Here.
Jim Henry.
Here?
Jennifer Sauter.
Here.
Alexis Taylor.
Here.
Eric Gallipo.
Here.
And Barbara Krisak.
Here.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we have our next application, 1207 Pine Street.
And Madam Chairwoman, I reviewed the notices, affidavits, they're all in proper form and have jurisdiction to proceed.
Excellent.
I would also like to state for the record that I realized today that I handled a very small matter for the property owner 3.5 years ago. Totally resolved, no issues, had nothing to do with the property. Never represented her before, haven't represented her since. So there's certainly no conflict, but I just want to clear that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay?
Good evening, members of the board. Good evening. My name is Bob McGowan. I'm the attorney representing the applicant. The applicant is 3 Sunset Drive. The two members of Sunset Drive are with us this evening, Dennis Roberts and Grace Roberts, his wife. I think she's actually the managing member. Also with us is our engineer and our planner, Ray Carpenter, who will provide most of the testimony. The application before you is for a minor subdivision. It is an L-shaped lot having an existing house facing out onto Pine Street and an empty lot essentially, which comes out at the other side of the L and faces out to Fifth Avenue. The proposal here is to use the empty lot to create a totally conforming lot. We're not seeking any variances with respect to the development of that lot. And we then leave in place the existing residence in the existing development on 1207 Pine Street. We create a variance only because we are now making the subdivision, and unfortunately the total area of the two lots is less than 10,000 square feet. There are also side yard variances and things like that on the existing lot, but we are not in any way expanding any of those variances or aggravating them in any way. So the proposal here this evening is to leave the existing lot essentially intact, giving it as much property as we can by creating a new conforming lot, and to create a conforming lot facing out onto Fifth that has no variances. With that in mind, I'd appreciate if I could call my engineer to provide testimony.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Carpenter?
You want to answer?
No, no, I'd rather have you describe. Dennis can then answer questions and stuff. Dennis may be known to some of you. Dennis Roberts, he has Rocon Construction. He has done a number of rehabilitations and new home developments on infill lots here in the city. This is another proposal to do an infill lot, quite frankly.
Well, have this gentleman stand up, and give us your right hand, raise your right hand. Sir, you solemnly swear that the testimony about to give this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name for the record and spell it for us.
Yes, Ray Carpenter, C-A-R-P-E-N-T-E-R.
Thank you.
Arvina, does he need to close to the microphone?
Yes, please, if you don't
Ray,
mind.
would you take a seat?
Sure.
Maybe another chair.
Ray, would you review for the board what is being proposed, and then if you can address the comments that we...
How about if he gives us his credentials first?
Sure.
Okay. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I've been practicing engineering since 1976 when I received my license. I'm also a licensed planner in New Jersey. I received my license as a planner in 1980. I have been before this board a couple times, primarily Southern Monmouth and Northern Ocean County is where I testified before the boards.
Madam Chairman, accept his credentials?
Yes.
Will you be testifying in both capacities? Or
Yes, as an engineer and a planner.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Before you do that, I'm sorry. Let's get our staff sworn so that in case they have to jump in, they can. Gentlemen, solemnly swear testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please state your names for the record and your affiliation with the board.
Michael Sullivan, Caucasian Kings, Board Planner.
Thank you.
McClellan, Untitled Engineering, for engineer.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
That's quite right.
Go right ahead.
All right, and which documents are we going to be looking at?
Primarily the proposed minor subdivision plan that's up on the screen. Mr. Roberts will probably testify to the photographs that are shown on the board and the architectural plans that are shown on the board also.
Okay, just to be clear, I've never seen those two before.
Okay, they're just exhibits.
Were these provided to the board?
The photographs, I'm not sure if these are the same photographs, but we did have site photographs submitted to the board.
Yes.
Which you have.
Yes, I have those.
But the architectural plans were not submitted with the application.
Okay, and as well as the photographs that I have are not those photographs.
Okay.
All right, so this is the first time that the board is seeing those, which is really not fair. But
Well,
let's move on.
They're an exhibit, not a evidence, I guess.
Okay,
I'm not personally aware of the taking of those pictures. I think Mr. Roberts is familiar with that.
Okay.
And he's also familiar with the architectural plan.
all right, let's go with what
Yeah, but he can't
you're here to speak
testify
to.
on the architectural plans.
Well, he's going to, we'll get into that. It's, he's not going to get into the detail of the architectural plans,
Correct.
but he's going to give testimony as to the intent of the builder to build on this lot.
Well, we'll see.
Okay,
If you're gonna talk about architecture, you need to have the architect here.
right.
If you're just gonna say, that's what we're gonna build,
No,
that's
we'll
okay.
get into that.
We agree. Our testimony is going to be engineering and planning.
Okay,
Good, thank you.
thank you.
So
Right.
let's mark into exhibit the minor subdivision plan
Sure.
as exhibit A1.
Okay.
And can you please verify the date of that document?
Yes, it's 8/23/21.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, as Mr. McGowan indicated, we have a piece of property that's L-shaped in nature. It fronts on two streets, Pine Street and Fifth Avenue. Has a total lot area of 9,450 square feet. So we don't have the full 10,000 square feet to attribute to two conforming building lots. There's an existing house on proposed lot 802 to remain in place. We're not proposing any changes to that structure. As you see it here, we're proposing to leave it untouched. We struck a subdivision line as shown on the plans across the lot that fronts on Fifth Avenue, providing a full 5,000 square feet to lot 8.01. That's a new lot. It'd be 5,000 square feet, conforming lot in width, depth, and area. If you look at the zoning chart, you'll see on the proposed lot 801, there's no stars, which indicates that there's no variances proposed in the lot. That was the intent, to provide a nice clean lot No variances are being requested. On the existing lot, obviously, it's substandard as far as lot area, but there's also certain side yard setbacks and setback for the garage existing. We're not changing them. They're pre-existing, and we're not changing them at all. So to get into the meat of the application, I'd like to use as an outline Insight's review letter dated October 13th, 2021.
Let's have that marked as P1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm not going to read it word for word. Everybody can read it. The first page is the project description. Pretty much summarizes exactly what I just indicated to you. There's one thing that's different. The minor development has an increased impervious coverage of 1,000 or less square feet, which is less than a quarter of an acre. So the stormwater management rules for the residential site improvement standards don't apply. Going through the letter on the second page, we deal with the completeness review. Obviously, there were things that we did to submit the application. There are a couple of things that are absent, primarily because we didn't use the structure on the plans as the proposed structure. There's also a couple of minor things on the checklist that we didn't provide. One of them under 9, it says show trees that are to be removed. There are no trees to be removed. We'll provide a contour plan when we submit for permits, meets and bounds description of the property lines. That is all part of things that we do once we have the subdivision approved.
Ray, didn't we submit a topographic though as part of our survey, as part of the plan?
We submitted a topographic survey,
Okay.
but I didn't show the topography on the subdivision plan because this is a subdivision, not a development plan.
Okay.
Under the zoning review, under number 11, non-conforming building coverage for proposed lot 802, special attention should be to mitigate the additional runoff created by these circumstances. There is no changes to lot 802. As it is today, it'll remain tomorrow. So we feel that we don't have to mitigate runoff on that property because there are no additional runoff created by this subdivision for that lot. About the AC locations, at this point in time, there are no AC units on the property. If there are ones proposed in the future, it'll have to be addressed. The only AC units that are shown are on the new lot. Okay. Moving down to number 13, that deals with the deeds. Obviously, once we get our approval, we'll provide the deeds for review. Number 14, architectural elements. I'm going to skip over that for time being. Number 15, we're showing a 9-foot versus a 10-foot required driveway. We feel that this type of driveway with the 2 paver strips on either side is more in keeping with trying to reduce the impervious coverage and runoff from the site, so we would ask for a relief on that matter. For purposes of stormwater, the proposed subdivision is defined as a minor development, and for requirements of 30-58.7 must be met. Lists what has to be done to meet that ordinance. The existing lot, there are no additional impervious coverage. Lot 801, we will comply with the ordinance as written. We will grade the property so that the adjacent properties are not impacted by the proposed development. And basically the water flows from the rear of the lot down to 5th Avenue based on the contours on survey. The soil testing and everything that goes along with the design of the drainage system will be provided to the board's engineer. Utility connections, that's something we have to address with the Public Works Department. We will, whatever they ask for, we'll provide. Same with the pavement repair. Whatever detail they need to show on the plans, we'll provide that detail. The pressed curb on the driveway apron, we will provide that detail, and the sidewalk will provide that detail also as part of our resolution compliance. The finished floors have not been provided. That's because we don't have a final architectural plan that we're going to actually build. Once we determine the actual structure that we're going to put on this new lot, 801, obviously we have to submit to the town to get permits through zoning. It will have the elevation shown on the plans, both the height and the finished floor elevations. Obviously, will be shown on the plans to get our permit to build. But they don't impact anything as far as the subdivision is concerned, because we're not asking for any variances on height or square footage on particular lot 801. We should provide testimony regarding location, possible screening. If you look on lot 801, we have 2 AC units in the rear of the property. They will be screened from the adjacent property to the right and from the property to the rear. The applicant must contact the city engineer to discuss sanitary sewer connection. Obviously, we have to get his approval and provide whatever information he needs to get it. As far as outside agencies, the only outside agency other than the utility connection would be Field Soils. We don't need a CAFRA permit. We don't need a flood hazard permit. The utility connections must be through the administration for the town. The fire official will review it for fire and safety. As far as I know, there's no environmental concerns, but we will submit to them for their approval. And the Shade Tree Commission obviously will submit plans to them for their review, and Mayor and Council will all be submitted plans for their approval. So that pretty much is a quick run through of the engineer's review letter.
I think you indicated that there are no variances required for a lot 8.01.
That's correct.
You're showing a rear yard setback of 22 feet. And
It's a rear yard setback of 20 feet to the bottom of the stairs. If you read in your land use ordinance, uncovered steps only may project up to 5 feet into the required rear or front yard setback. What we have on the plans, it was mislabeled. It says proposed open deck. It should say proposed open landing and steps, because by definition, a deck has to be 4 feet deep. This deck, or this landing, is only 3 feet deep.
But by the city's definition?
But yes, you want me to recite the?
Let's get it clarified.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carpenter, would you mind putting your mask back on?
But I know, I'm just.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. This is right from, yes. A deck, this is by your definition, shall mean an uncovered platform which is attached to the building, which projects more than 4 feet from the facade, including railings. This only projects 3 feet, so it's not considered a deck. And building coverage shall mean the area of a lot parcel covered by buildings or structures exclusive of parking areas. And this is not a deck. If you read,
Let's just what section?
I'm reading from 30-68.4 yard regulations. Under the definition of porch shall mean covered entrance. So this is not a covered entrance. It's not 4 feet, and it's part of the steps. It's a landing for the steps, and the steps project 5 feet into the rear yard, and 5 feet is allowed by definition. So we do not need any variances for lot 8.01.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up to you. Can you just, which section talks about what a deck is versus what a...
Okay.
68?
30-68.4, yard regulations, and it goes into the definitions.
Right? Hard yards, cornices, 2 feet, uncovered steps.
Right.
Their structural front of a porch.
Well, the porch is obviously a porch, and that's included in our building coverage. We're talking about the landing and steps to the rear.
Where does it say deck has to be less than 4 feet?
Right underneath the definition of deck. Deck shall mean an uncovered.
Section 30-68.4.
It's under the definition portion of that ordinance.
Oh, okay, so, let me just get there.
Yeah, I just pulled up all the definitions from that section.
Deck. Okay, so it's gotta be 4, so it's not.
Got to be 4 feet.
You labeled it as a deck on your plan, but it's not a deck.
It's not a deck, it's a landing.
Okay.
That was
It's only 3
mislabeled.
feet.
It's 3 feet.
3 feet, so it's not a deck.
It's not a deck. And building code requirements are that when you have an exterior door, you have to have a 3-foot landing outside the door minimum. So that's what we have.
So this is fun. You can tell, right? So we call it as a variance because it's a deck and there's 2 steps, right? So there's 1, 2, and then there's
A landing.
Well, you call it a landing. There's no definition for landing in here, okay? And the ordinance only permits steps to be in that yard. So you would have to interpret that a landing is really just.
It's part of the steps.
Well, regardless, if it's 20 or 25 feet, isn't the requirement for rear yard setback still 35 feet?
Yeah, it's still 35 no matter what.
Or is it 25 feet?
It's
Am I-
25.
Oh, it's 25.
It's
Okay.
25. So, yeah, so we're starting with it's 25
I got you.
foot for the rear setback. Their plan shows 25 feet to the building line, but
Okay.
then they show an uncovered or proposed open deck with steps down the grade. It's got 2 steps, and then it's got the landing on top. The ordinance specifically excludes the steps from being required to be subject to the setback, the rear setback or front setback, because they also have steps in the front yard.
Correct.
Which we know. But the ordinance, there's an assumption being made here that it's a landing, and a landing is not a deck, but it also isn't a step technically, so.
But
So if this were
It's also-
reversed, and the steps were at the rear property, rear line of the house, and then went down to a landing at grade, it would solve the problem?
Presumably, yes. But I'm just saying that, you know, that there's a little gap in the ordinance, because landing is not defined.
All right, but maybe I'm missing something here, but we're sitting here talking about a house that doesn't exist, architecture that we won't see. We're just talking about a subdivision. That's all we're talking about.
That's correct.
So I'm not sure why it matters,
We're not proposing any variances.
all these setbacks and whatever. Why does it matter if there's
If you're
nothing that
creating-
is shown to us?
Right, if you're creating a conforming lot, done.
Okay,
Right.
That's what we want to
That's
know.
fine too, but it's shown on the plan, and so we're just calling it a
Right,
condition.
no, you're right, because you
Right.
saw it
No,
on the
you're,
plan.
you're right to do that because this is what you were provided,
Right.
but if they create a conforming lot, they create a conforming lot.
And
What
when
we
it comes
are,
time to construct, they'll have to conform to the ordinance.
and what we are,
Okay.
essentially what we're approving is the codification of the variances on the remainder lot.
Correct.
Right,
That's correct.
so even
all
the.
of this stuff for the, to your point, Barbara, right, seems somewhat
Irrelevant.
irrelevant.
Right,
It's irrelevant to the
and like
Yeah.
even the discussion of saying that it's 10 feet versus 9 feet as far as the driveway,
I understand why Michael.
It doesn't
addressed
matter.
it, Because it's
Yeah,
shown
yeah.
on the plan.
right,
Right.
and,
We,
But
and you're right.
from a legal perspective, for the purposes of tonight, we don't have to. get
Yeah, we
involved.
don't, we don't have to discuss what this
No.
house, this lot's gonna look like, except for the variances you want.
Right.
Tell us about those.
Let me just say for a second, thank you, Madam Chairman, I mean, you're absolutely right. What we are defining is what the building envelope is, what variances we need, and what variances you may permit. The rest of it was information which was beyond what needed to be there. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
We wanted to give the board a general idea of what we were anticipating on building.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Right.
This is not the final version.
Right, and you're not coming to that, we're just talking about a subdivision, that's
That's
all we're
correct.
talking about. All right, so let's get to what matters.
Just a quick point of clarification, mostly about stormwater management. So my understanding is, since it's a subdivision and they meet the criteria for a minor development, that is under the jurisdiction of this board to review and approve.
What is?
For the stormwater management and grading design.
And you differ with this engineer?
We're going to do that on the lot 801, where we're proposing an increase in the impervious coverage, but there's no increase in,
Building department review, and that's going to be reviewed by us, right, during resolution compliance?
I assume.
Drainage design?
right,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Sounds like you're on the same page.
Yeah, and my client is fully aware of the fact that he's under the obligation
Okay.
of meeting the ordinance on lot 801.
We agreed.
Okay,
All right,
got it.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Not until we get into lot 802.
Right.
Okay. Now I'm going to use the letter from your planner dated October 14, 2021 as an outline for the planning
We'll
testimony.
mark that as B2.
Oh, one quick thing, I think you skipped over number 16 regarding lighting.
If I could have Dennis Roberts sworn in, he can answer that question.
Not until he's done.
Okay.
I don't go back and forth.
We'll go back to
Turns
that,
into
we will respond to that question.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you.
keep that one in your cap.
We will do that, thank you.
Okay, now we get into the planning review letter. Again, paragraph 1 lays out what we're proposing. The big picture is that we have a new lot fronting on Fifth Avenue, an existing lot that fronts on Pine Street. The vacant lot will contain a new home. The proposed lot 802 will have the existing structure remain on the lot without any changes to it. And summary of relief sought deals with all of lot 802, where it deals with minimum lot size, maximum building coverage, and some bulk variances for side yards and rear yards. We'll get into that. The rear yard setback for lot 801, and we're not asking for that. That we just went through that discussion. Okay. Neighborhood context. Plan use in the immediate area is predominantly single-family, detached homes, standard 5,000 square foot lots. All the lots front on streets, either Pine Street or Fifth Avenue. The entire area is all zoned for R1, single-family residential. This is a conforming use on the property. The nonconformities are all on lot 802. If you go to the bulk standards on page 3 of 9, you'll see, obviously, we needed variance for lot width. We're only 39 feet, where 50 feet is required. This is an existing condition. It will not change after the subdivision. The mean minimum front yard setback is 25 feet. The existing setback on lot 802, proposed lot 802, is 20.2, which is existing. That will not change. You have on this chart, it shows a proposed lot 801, a variance for the rear yard setback, which we've just discussed. The accessory structure on lot 802 is the garage. It's a pre-existing structure. It's 1.1 foot off the rear yard where 3 is required. It's 0.2 off the side yard where 5 feet is required. Again, a pre-existing condition will not change as a result of the subdivision. The maximum building coverage is allowed is 30%, based on the fact that future lot 802 will be reduced. We're at 36.5%, which is 252 square feet. That's the amount of building coverage that we exceed the ordinance. So those are the variances that we're asking for. They're all on lot 802. They're all pre-existing conditions other than lot area and the maximum building coverage, which is directly related to the amount of lot area. And like I said, we're deficient in lot area by 550 square feet, and we're over on our building coverage by 252 square feet. Going on to page 4, we get into summarizing the lot requirements. It talks about the minimum lot size being 5,000 square feet. We're proposing 4,450 square feet, and it contains existing structure. The variance is a C variance, and part of this is the lot area. Bob, do you want to get into the situation with the neighbor on that?
No.
Okay. The maximum building coverage is increased to 36.5, and there's a typo in the letter under B. It says approximately 292 square feet, or 16.5%. It should be 6.5%. Variance is pursuant to 4555D-70. We need a variance for the building coverage, which is which is an outcome of the fact that we don't have the building area. Two areas, building area and building coverage, are interrelated. The rear yard setback and the side yard setback for the garage, again, are existing. We're not proposing to change that. It's an existing condition. Moving on to the subdivision and site design. I agree with the comments that the lot configuration will be consistent with the pattern of development along this section of Fifth Avenue. It's all 50-foot lots, 100-foot deep, 150 feet deep, or not 150 feet, 100 feet deep, 50 feet wide. They're all 5,000 square feet lots for the most part. I mean, there are a few that are bigger, but most of them meet the minimum 5,000 square feet. Proposed layout on lot 802.
Just back up for a second.
Sure.
One of the comments in 3.1 is that regards the excessive front, what the planner sees as an excessive front yard setback. We've discussed that, and what are we proposing?
Right. The ordinance says that your front yard setback is 25 feet, or the average of the front yards in that block. So we do not have the information at this present time to indicate what the average setback is on the houses in that block. But the house on lot 9 is approximately 17 feet from the property line to the porch, and on lot 7, the front yard setback appears to be right around 25 feet. So if you look at an aerial photograph of this block, you'll see that a lot of the houses are encroaching into the front yard setback. We don't have specific numbers on that. At the time that we submit for zoning, we'll provide a listing of the,
Just to be clear, the context for that was to get rid of the variance that we saw in the rear. So if that happens, that's fine.
okay,
But
right.
we do have the opportunity to conform with that setback, with the average setback, is that correct?
Of course.
Yes, okay, so we will look at that adjustment.
Okay, 3.2, lot layout. Pretty much the lot layout is dictated by the rest of the lots within the block. The resulting lot area will actually, on Pine Street, the resulting area will actually be larger than many of the lots on Pine Street. If you looked on the tax map, going up and down Pine Street, you'll find numerous lots that are less than 5,000 square feet. Vehicle parking, obviously, it's dependent on the number of bedrooms in the proposed structure. Whatever the residential site improvement standards require for parking, we will provide. We have a driveway with ample parking. If we need to extend the driveway further to get the required parking, we can do that. But right now, we're providing 2 parking spaces on the plans. That's the required minimum for the town, and that's based on 3 bedrooms. So
You're talking about lot 8.01? Or
8.01, right.
Why are we discussing? If we don't know what you're gonna do
No.
there,
Well, I'm just going through the letter.
yeah, oh, okay.
I'm just,
Okay, all right, I get it, because it was brought up, because it's shown on your plan.
That's correct.
Right back to where we were. Okay,
Right.
I'm with you.
right. As far as the street trees, I agree with a comment about contributing to the fund, the Shade Tree Commission for 2 additional street trees. If you've been to the site, there's really no room to put two street trees on this site, either on the Pine Street side or on the Fifth Avenue side. So we'll contribute to the Shade Tree Commission for 2 trees.
As a resident of Fifth Avenue, I think there is ample room for trees.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
And on Fifth Avenue, there's a very regular spacing of them. And I would suggest that we try to maintain whatever reasonable spacing keeps the rhythm up across the
Right.
street.
As far as the architectural design, the only reason we submitted them was to give you an idea of the type of house that we're looking to build. It's not going to be a contemporary house. It's going to be a house that meets both the architectural nature.
I really think that's premature. If you're looking for a raw subdivision with a conforming
Right.
lot, okay?
Well, a lot of times.
We don't want to get into that.
Okay.
Because that's something that you're gonna have to deal with at a later time when you go to build. You're gonna
Okay.
have to comply with the design guidelines and community standards and all that.
Okay.
And actually, this is just a raw lot. I think,
That's right.
I'm gonna recommend to the board, unless Michael and Doug see differently, or the board members see differently, you should submit a revised plan that shows a clean lot for lot 8.1. I don't want in the record these specific items, because I don't want the future use of the property or a future application before a board, if one becomes necessary, to somebody to come in and say, oh, we showed that on the other.
I agree with you 100%.
I'd want a clean, a new subdivision map submitted, revised plan, omitting all those improvements on 8.01 to just show us a raw lot that complies. And what you do post-approval, whether you need variances or not, that's another, an application for another day.
If they create a clean lot and they determine they need a variance, they go to the zoning board later.
Exactly.
Right.
And you go, that's where you go with that. So,
Okay.
because I don't want this in the record that, okay, well, somebody can come in, not you two, maybe somebody else, might be sold, and they say, oh, well, we already showed a shed, we already showed a deck, it's not a deck, but it's a landing, and it's a deck.
Confused.
Okay.
Yeah,
The record.
I want it straightforward.
Okay, I agree with you.
Yeah.
How do we ensure the grading and stormwater management design complies?
At some, well, we have to put in a condition of approval that, and when it's future development on this property, that they will comply with the, whatever applicable stormwater requirements there are.
Right.
Correct? Would that cover it?
Not to be reviewed by Insight?
Well, it could be, it's gonna have to be reviewed by somebody at some point. They'll have to comply with the ordinance as it exists when they go to develop the property, and I'm sure that goes out to either you or T&M or somebody, somebody's gotta look at it.
Yeah, the problem is that if we put anything relative to stormwater management in a resolution of approval, how do we meet that? Other than the comment that will comply with the ordinance.
I think that, so single-family homes are exempt from site plan review, right? But because it's a subdivision, it triggers a minor development threshold for stormwater management. But I don't know that the city engineer would see it that way. Is that?
Well, no, we'll make it a requirement as a condition of approval, part and parcel of the approval, that it's been determined that the stormwater requirements that you're referencing must be complied with for future development on this property. So then, when it is developed, there'll be a resolution on record within the internal sections of the city that knows that they have to get a report, and they have to be compliant.
When they come for construction projects.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, make sure that the city's protected, and the residents, the neighbors, and the like. Okay.
Sorry, just a question about that. So that means that, so they wouldn't be able to come in and say, well, this is R1, this is single family, I don't need that. Is that what the?
No, we're gonna cross that bridge now.
Okay.
As part of approval, assuming it's approved, we'll put that in as a condition that it must be complied with as per the report of Inside Engineer. I'll reference the date and the section and all of that.
Okay.
So we can, just to make it perfectly clear, we can get resolution compliance without providing stormwater management calculations to the board or to another engineer, because obviously we can't do the calculations until we have a house that we're going to build.
Right. But it does, you do have to meet the requirement at such time as a house is built here.
Okay, as long as we don't need it for resolution compliance.
To get a signed subdivision plan.
Right.
It's a condition of approval, but it has to be complied with at a future date.
A continuing condition.
Yeah, continuing condition,
Okay,
outstanding condition.
that's
of
fine.
approval. And then this way, the issue will be addressed. It won't be sloughed over.
Okay. Moving into the arguments in favor of the variances, the positive criteria is that we're creating a fully conforming lot. We will conform with stormwater management regulations. There will be no variances required for the new lot. All the variances related to this project are dealing with existing conditions on Lot 802, which will remain the same, will not be changed, exacerbated in any way. The only thing that changes is the proposed lot area for 8.02 is deficient 550 square feet. So we feel that we're providing a buildable lot that fronts on Fifth Avenue that's very similar to all the other houses on Fifth Avenue. There's really no negative because the situation on lot 802 exists today, other than lot area, and will remain the same in the future, whether the subdivision is approved or not.
I have one question here, and that's related to the building coverage. You are creating one new existing nonconformity in the lot coverage of 802. But you keep saying you're not creating or exacerbating any nonconformities. Right, am I correct? Okay,
Correct.
okay, maybe you'll get there.
No,
but I just-
you're absolutely correct. I forgot that, yes, for building coverage, we are going to require variance because the lot area is being reduced. The impervious coverage percentage goes up,
Right.
which
It's not-
exceeds the allowable percentage, but the actual impact is that there is no additional impervious coverage per se being constructed on lot 802.
Now,
It's
would
just a
you-
result of the lot area being reduced.
Understood. Now, would you say that that lot coverage that will be created on 802 is consistent with other similar buildings in the immediate surroundings?
Yes, if you look on Pine Street, there's numerous lots that are less than 5,000 square feet. I didn't do the calculations on the building coverage, but just overall, there are numerous lots that I'm sure exceed the building
Are
coverage.
those lots directly adjacent or across the street from
There's
the lot?
actually, there's one right across the street. Actually, there's one right across
I
the
know
street.
the answer, I'm just trying
Right
to get
across,
the record.
yeah, right across the street.
Yes.
And we don't feel that the lot coverage is going to, the building coverage, I should say, is going to cause any change to the nature of the neighborhood. It's, you know, that house has been there for a long period of time. Nothing's going to change. You walk by the house, you're never going to know that the lot's smaller than 5,000 square feet. So I don't see any negative impact from a zoning standpoint. I only see positive because we're creating a valuable lot for development on Fifth Avenue for whoever wants to build there, and it's variance free, and we're going to comply with all the town requirements on a new lot. So I think this is a good application. I think that there is really no negative to this application. The existing conditions are what they are, and we're not really exacerbating any of them.
You are. It's a semantic point, but you are.
By addition, we're not only
Yes.
by subtraction. Greg, do you agree with the planner's comments in 6.1 as far as how we address some of the master plan goals?
Yes, I would say that's a fair representation of what this application has done. It says ensure infill development. It complements the context and qualities of the adjacent neighborhoods. This is a typical infill development. Encourage development in appropriate locations. It's between two conforming lots. It's a conforming lot in the neighborhood. So I would say it's a good location for the development. Enhance the character of single-family neighborhoods. Yeah, it's going to there's kind of like a gap in the neighborhood now with this lot. So it's going to fill it in. It's going to make it look all uniform. You look up and down the street, there's going to be a house on every lot. And it goes to the use of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Members of the board.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
Yes, so in terms of lot coverage, you are going over the percentage and ratio of building to land, and I'm wondering if there are other ways to reduce the impervious surface on the existing lot.
Well, the existing lot conforms with the lot coverage requirements. You're allowed 65% impervious coverage, and we're at, I think, 62% lot coverage. The building coverage that we're over, and you would have to take a portion of that building and cut it off in order to comply with the building requirement, or the building coverage requirements would be 252 square feet. You'd have to take off of that building to make it comply with the building coverage requirements.
Right, which I guess I wouldn't be asking you to do, actually take, but are there ways to reduce the impervious surface on that lot because your building coverage exceeds?
Well, there's a concrete patio behind the existing structure that could be converted to grass area. And that would reduce the impervious coverage. Obviously wouldn't decrease the building coverage, but it would reduce the overall quote-unquote coverage.
Right.
So, and then obviously, it's of no use to the garage because there's no way for somebody to get into the garage with a car in that area. So if you drew a straight line from the corner of the house back to the garage, everything to the, what would it be? To the north would be, you know, that impervious area could be made grass. And, you know, with stepping stones or whatever over to the driveway.
Yes.
And I think that would go a long way to reducing the coverage approximately, I believe, that would be 17 by 15, 17 by 15. It'd be about 250 square feet, actually.
That's great.
How convenient.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a reasonable change to the plans.
Wonderful.
Anybody else have anything else? Anything else that we'd like to change to be impervious?
I have a comment that, and this is in reference to your construction of a new house on the newly formed lot. And I think the planner's report talking about urban design objectives is very apropos here, because the house that is going to go up between the two existing houses on Fifth Avenue should incorporate some of the elements of those existing houses and other houses on Fifth Avenue to make it fit in as if it were part of the existing scape as of now. I don't know, except keeping it in mind, keeping this notation in mind when a house is being proposed, when and I don't know that that can even be reasonably made a condition of approval. And that's kind of subjective thing, but
No, actually, it's not subjective. But go ahead.
Yeah.
It's required.
The planner's comment notes that it is required. The applicant will be required to present building plan designs that meet these requirements, meaning community design.
Sure.
So that will be part of the process of getting the building plan.
We can state it in the resolution because we're just repeating what has to be done. It has to be done anyway, whether we put it in there or not, they still have to comply with the community design standards. But it can't hurt to put it in because they gotta do it anyway. So there's no harm, no foul. And it's not subjective, it's actually more of a requirement.
a few months ago, we had a similar situation, I think on Fourth Avenue.
Yes, we did.
We should be mindful of that.
Yeah, I've got it there. I've written it. Yeah.
Anybody else on the planning board have any questions or concerns, or our professionals to this witness? Anyone from the public have any questions for this witness? Come on up. Please
Does he
state.
need to get access to the microphone?
She's
She's
right there. Oh, there. Just your name and address, please.
Mike Barnes, 1200 Fifth. I just had a question. Like, the house that he showed me did not look like it fit in our neighborhood.
I'm
It
sorry,
looks
but
very
it's
similar to the house that he did on Third Avenue, which does look like it fits that neighborhood. But it doesn't have the big porch like everybody in our neighborhood has. I don't know if we're able to ask them to, well, it sounds like we might be able to ask them to modify it, but I just thought that it didn't really look like a house in our neighborhood.
I'm going to leave that to our attorney because we're not really.
Okay, technically, we're not gonna even bother with these architectural things. Because they're all, and that's why I made the comment before about I would recommend to the board that revised plans be submitted, omitting everything off of 8.01 and just showing a clean lot. And next, the last comment about compliance with the community design standards, those will be specific about what type of construction should go there. So we're not only do they have to comply whether or not we mention in our condition of approval, but we're going to mention it. So this way, they're on notice, and they will be once again on notice when they go in for approval of building plans. Those community design standards will be reviewed by the building department and hopefully the zoning officer for compliance. So that there should not be a house that does not, constructed there, that does not fit within the community design standards applicable to that area.
And do the neighbors have any input in that? Or?
No, not necessarily. The city has a staff that will look at the plans and say you do or you do not. And if they determine that they do not comply, then there's a trip to the zoning board of adjustment, and all property owners within 200 feet would be noticed. You would have the opportunity to come in and comment at that point in time.
If they decided to go to seek
If
a
they
variance.
decide to go that route and not change their plans in order to comply with what the staff says should be built there. I mean, they have a range. They don't dictate the exact design of the house, but they have a range. And I believe that front porches and the like are all mentioned and brought into the mix, if I'm correct, Michael.
Correct.
Yeah, so there should be an adequate, there are adequate provisions within the city's zoning and development regulations to ensure that an A-frame ski lodge doesn't get built there.
I think Mr. Barnes's concern is essentially that we are not approving anything other than the creation of a lot.
We are not. That's why I'm requiring this.
Or we are considering the approval of a creation of a lot.
That's why I recommended that this be brought back with a clean slate, and then they have to comply from square one with whatever they put on there.
But you will not be noticed for what they decide to put on that lot unless they seek a variance at that time.
Right. It's the staff's job, zoning officer, redevelopment officer, to enforce the design regulations within the zoning code. They're your representative.
All right, anybody, any other member of the public that would like to get up, please, to the microphone? Any questions of anything that has been discussed here by this witness?
Yes.
And your name?
Dietrich Dika, 1204 Fifth Ave.
Thank you.
So I'm a little bit confused about the discussion of, you're going to limit tonight's hearing to just simply subdividing the lot.
That was the application that was requested of us.
Okay. So, but then in the discussion about the structures that they proposed building on the new lot, there seem to be a number of gray areas where there doesn't seem to be agreement on how the code is interpreted.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it sounds like we won't have an opportunity to review the plans of what they build if the zoning board approves what they put forward.
If everything complies with, let's say the building comes in, if everything complies, the design complies with everything, so they don't need approval for anything that's outside of what is required, then they don't have to come back.
Is there an opportunity for the public to review the plans?
I don't believe that there ever is,
Because
no.
there's something like with the rear setback.
All of that's going away. That's why I was insisting on coming back with a clean slate. That's not going to exist. Anything that's there is going away. It's not going to be.
I understand that, but my concern is there didn't seem to be agreement among the board of how to interpret that rear setback requirement. Because zoning officers.
The zoning officer will make that determination. When this gentleman develops the property or he sells it to you or anybody else, whoever comes in, they have to submit the detailed plans to the zoning officer. And if it's still Michelle Alonso or whoever works up there, she will determine if the application for the building complies with the ordinances insofar as.
But there did seem to be consensus on how to interpret the ordinance.
There is no
the setback.
No, it's an irrelevant issue because that's not getting approved tonight.
I understand, but in the future, it looks like the process allows a developer to submit plans. If the zoning board is content with it and they overlook certain items, will get approved.
No, they won't overlook anything. If the zoning officer, if it's a matter of a gray area, the zoning officer is charged under state statute to make the determination. If he or she determines that the application does not comply, they have a choice. They can either amend their plans to make it so comply, or they can appeal her decision to the zoning board, and then you would receive notice and have an opportunity to come in and say.
But you're relying on one individual.
That's the law.
Interpretation of the ordinance.
That's the law.
And then, yet I just observed a situation here where amongst the entire panel, you couldn't agree on how to interpret the.
It doesn't matter.
I think he's not understanding the difference between the planning board and the zoning board.
The zoning officer is charged with the initial interpretation of the land use laws. Okay. The planning board doesn't do that. Okay, we're not here for that.
Okay.
We're here for the subdivision.
Okay.
And if it's determined by the zoning officer that there's been an error or that they don't comply, they don't come back here, they go to the zoning board of adjustment, not the planning board.
Okay.
At which time they'd have to file a formal application, and anyone within 200 feet would get noticed and have an opportunity to come in. And at that point, it would be fully vetted out at that point to see what, if any, variances are required, and if the zoning officer was correct in his or her interpretation of the law.
But also, I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that once the plans go to the zoning, to the zoning office, you have a right to see them. But you'd have to know that they were there.
Right.
So you have a right to ask and say, did they submit plans? And if they did, you have a right to see them. As a member of the public, anyone can see it.
Okay. So how do we?
However, if what they submit complies with every ordinance and community design standard, all you can do is look at the plans.
Right.
That's it. You can't say, I don't like it, if it complies.
How are you made aware that there are plans available for review?
You would only be made aware if they seek a variance from some existing ordinance or a community design standard.
That is correct.
That is the only way.
Or you could put in a general OPA request to the construction department when plans are submitted for this. I want a copy through the OPA.
Can you do that? I don't think
Sure
you can
you
do.
do.
You
Sure
can.
can.
You can't do that, you can't do that in advance, though.
You can't do
Once
it in
they're
advance.
submitted.
Can't do it in advance because
Yeah.
there's nothing there to request.
Okay.
Correct.
Put one in every 3 months.
You can do
Yeah, you can do
that.
that.
You check every once in a while and you submit it.
Essentially, the lot that is created, that would be created out of this action, is a conforming lot. There are 5,000 square foot lots all over Asbury Park, and our laws govern the development of lots that are 5,000 square feet. And so anything built has to comply. They aren't going to get a construction permit if it doesn't. You can't get one. If they want to continue with their plan to not comply, they will have to go to the zoning board, at which point you would receive a notice as a neighbor.
I understand that, but it's just, my concern was, with that discussion of the rear deck, goes back there, the low deck.
But there's no deck. There's nothing there.
Yeah, I know. All right.
One of the things practically you can do, you see construction equipment going on that property,
Run on over.
go downtown. Or you see somebody putting a shovel in there and start digging, go downtown, because you can look at the file and find out what the zoning
All
officer
right,
did.
okay, good point. That's it.
Okay.
Mike Barnes, 1200 Fifth. So what they showed us is kind of superfluous.
Exactly.
It's just you guys are going to approve a rectangle.
That's correct.
Okay.
It was a waste of everybody's time.
Okay.
A flat rectangle, not just a rectangle, a flat rectangle.
A flat rectangle. All right,
Mostly
and
flat.
anyone else from the public would like to speak? Okay, do you have any other witnesses?
There was a question about lighting. I assume that's gone away at this point, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Other than that, the owner is here. If the board has any questions of him, other than that, I don't know that there's any additional testimony that's required.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments that they would like to make regarding this application?
Would you want to hear the comments from the public first?
That would be great. All right, this, I got a request, can I get a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
I have a motion by Eric Galvo and a second by Mr. Henry. All in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, open to public comment.
Yeah, at this point, if you want to make a comment, you get sworn in, and you can make a comment about the application.
Yeah, it's a 3-minute comment time.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Before you ask questions now, if you have a comment about it, make a comment.
Okay. All right, motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so, Jack, now we have a list of items
Yes,
that, do you want to read yours off?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, most specifically, there was one comment which sounded like the discussion that went on between Alexis and the gentleman, that there would be a move to reduce some of that rear concrete area to increase impervious surface, as per the comments, which would have to be evolved and put down. Lot 8, Doug's requirement regarding the applicable drainage.
Yes.
And site drainage compliant moving forward. Compliance with the community design standards, and they're set forth in section 4.1 of the CCH report. And there are other conditions that the gentleman referred to that they would comply with, set forth in the insight report. And that's...
There was also that discussion about the, I don't know if we're looking to move on a blank lot. Do we have to have that discussion about the trees?
Yeah, well, the other
On
one,
Fifth
that's
Avenue.
just triggered submission of revised plan omitting the improvements on proposed lot 8.01. We just want to see a blank lot, and then the trees. What's the board's pleasure?
Well, we were talking about that, we see that there's plenty of room on Fifth Avenue to add those trees.
I think you can add at least, you can add one tree, right? Unless.
I'm not sure what but it's probably at least one.
There's one existing.
All right, so when we're saying that we would like to see a new site plan, so that means that this applicant has to come back?
No.
That means that they just have to
Conditional
submit?
approval. They just have to submit a
Okay.
revised site plan, omitting all of the, I just want to see a plain, a black rectangular lot with nothing on it.
Okey-doke.
Yeah, that can be done.
If I may, just to clarify the wording on the trees, the intent here is to keep the spacing of the trees uniform on the block, is that correct?
To the greatest extent possible.
Yeah.
I mean, the city engineer will look at it, review it, right? Yeah, somebody else will approve where it goes, but.
That's fine.
But it should be a large
caliber.
hard, you know, heavy structured, tree that's gonna help define the street.
Yeah, a
You help me with
beautiful
this?
shade canopy tree.
Okay. Michael will give me his planner speak, and
Yes.
I'll incorporate it into the resolution.
I mean, we have sycamores on.
And, so then we're gonna omit that variance on proposed lot 8.01. Okay.
Motion to,
Can I just
Oh,
ask-
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I should have asked this before, and it's no big deal, I'm just the curious type. Who's the owner? Just because on,
The property owner is Schuman, the
well,
applicant.
it says it two different places. I mean, it says, the owner says Schuman at 1207 Pine, then this says Schuman at your business address, and then it says you're the contract purchaser. And because this was given like a month or so ago, have you closed on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so she's still the owner?
Yes.
Okay, just out of curiosity. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't ask that before.
All right, go ahead, Alexis.
motion to approve the resolution with all of the conditions
Right.
stated by Jack.
Approve the subdivision, minor subdivision with the remaining variances for lot 8.02.
What he said.
Got it.
Second.
I have a motion by Alexis Taylor and a second by Michael Manzella. Mayor John Moore,
Yes.
Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton.
Yes.
Michael Manzella.
Yes.
Jim Henry.
Yes.
Jennifer Sauter.
Yes.
Alexis Taylor.
Yes.
Eric Gallipo.
Yes.
And Barbara Frizzell.
Yes.
Thank you. Application approved.
Members of the board,
All right.
thank you very much. Oh.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
What was second? Sorry.
Yvonne.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
So the model ordinance,